Awesome. Well, today I'm chatting with Sameer Malhotra, the CEO and co-founder of Cafe Spice. Cafe Spice is a manufacturer of ready-to-eat meals. They're starting with Indian meals actually, and now they're kind of moving on to actually Mexican meals. So I'm super excited to have him on. He's one of the first partners of Chef, and also just an incredible founder and entrepreneur. So I'm excited to hear your story, Sameer. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Rajat. So excited to be here.
Awesome. So
Um,
I'd love to kind of just start with like your story. So, you grew up in New York City and you founded Cafe Spice with your father back in the early 2000s. Um, at that point, you had already kind of built a couple restaurants. I'd love to kind of hear your journey. Even like, how did you kind of grow up and how did you kind of get into the food and restaurant industry? And then how did you kind of pivot from restaurants to more like high volume, more manufacturing style operations?
yeah, it's a fun story, entrepreneurial journey that we've been through. Grew up in the family restaurant business. We had fine dining restaurants in New York City and in Westchester County. And New York City was like the best Indian restaurant in the 80s and early 90s in New York before there were many restaurants as there are today. And really in the origin, my dad was one of the pioneers of Indian food in New York. But we also opened a restaurant in Westchester, which was more for the suburbs and the families. So people who had related with the restaurant in Manhattan on the weekends bring their families, and that was our like family restaurant, right? We all worked there. My sister was the hostess. My mom was helping get food out of the kitchen. My dad was doing his networking. I was the coat check, and so it was like the restaurant was always in our blood. And it was called Davat. Davat was those two restaurants. And in 1996, I went to Babson College undergrad to study entrepreneurship. And my father saw that there was I was kind of getting groomed to join the family business. Had the entrepreneurship in my blood, had the food bug, marketing. My dad and I both don't know how to cook, but we're great marketing minds and vision. So 98, he opened the first Cafe Spice restaurant in University Place near NYU. And my business plan in Babson was to help expand those restaurants through the goal was at that time to through a hub and spoke model through a commissary, right? And expand it to every university town. And when I graduated in 2000, we had a couple restaurants in Manhattan. We had opened Philadelphia. We'd opened some express outlets in Boston. So the commissary was in Queens. It was a 6,000 square foot commissary in Long Island City, Queens. And, it was fun expanding the restaurants, but we had the right operating team to help build them. But Whole Foods opened their first like flagship store in New York City in 2002. Commissary was new, still trying, it's extra overhead, right? When you're building restaurants. So, we went over, they put it in the New York Times that they're going to have Indian food on their hot bar every day. And being the pioneer in Indian food, we'd seen it, right? We'd seen how Indian food had grown in New York. And this was something that's pretty cool. It's going to be on the hot bar. We've seen it in the UK. We'd never seen it in New York. And I had a great advisor in the UK, and I want to speak to him, Sir Ghulam Noon. He's passed away now, but he was knighted, and he had these he had this business pretty much in the UK for many years. And he always said that Indian food is normal in the UK. Here in the US, it's still an acquired taste. But if you can really make it work, you have such a bigger country. You have so much. There's so much more there. So that kind of stuck with us. So when Whole Foods opened the store in Columbus Circle, my mom, my dad, and I walked in. They were trying to make Indian food from scratch, which is not easy, right? You have to grind the spices. There's so many different elements to keep the flavor, and the store was so busy they weren't able to keep up with the volume either, right? So my father said to them, we have a commissary. We have Cafe Spice. We have a Cafe Spice in Grand Central. We have a commissary that makes the food for Cafe Spice. And, within a couple of days, we were making the food for that one store. And as that grew, obviously, outgrew my 6,000 square foot facility. We built our larger USDA facility in Orange County, New York, in 2008. And the goal was now expand the restaurants, and let's supply Whole Foods and other and supermarkets. As things developed, I said, Dad, I said to my parents, I don't really love the retail business. This is something I could really, you have a certain amount of seats, you need to fill them up. You have your weekends, holidays, everything is all given to this restaurant. And we did it. I saw it as a fan growing up. But I really think there's something here with what we can do with Indian food and prepared meals. As you mentioned in the intros, Indian food is where we started. Now we do a lot more and pivoted the entire business to now, even though we kept the restaurant name Cafe Spice, we shut down all the restaurants one by one, but and focused solely on food service, co-packing, private label, ethnic, again, Indian food as our core, ethnic food after that. Like, we do Thai, we do
Yeah,
Latin, as you mentioned. We just launched a brand called Cantina Latina. But it's been that evolution over the last 26 years of like a restaurant, like early restaurant business to into what we are today, which is
yeah,
now we have a 70,000 square foot automated facility in the Hudson Valley and Beacon, and it's like state of the art, really. And
yeah, yeah,
you've been there, so
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, for sure.
using chef robotics has been very key for us in the scaling and the goal and growing it. So it's been
Yeah.
exciting.
And tell me about more about like, obviously you had this great vision of more, let's, retail is hard, but like for your dad and your family, I mean, that was his life and their life. Like, I mean, how did they react when you said, "Hey, I don't want to do retail so much anymore"? Was that a hard conversation or was it pretty straightforward?
It happened over time. It wasn't like, yeah, yes, for my father it always has the reach. Even now, right, we
Yeah.
invest in restaurants. He still invests in restaurants
Yeah.
himself. Like he has that retail bug. He's had it also with like investing in chefs who he sees, like, they want to, like, we're in the world of the star chef, and it wasn't there earlier. So seeing people want to grow and things like that, and he invests in them, invests in restaurants, things like that. So he still has it, but the operating part of it, he was okay with it. He's like, I we have, as a good immigrant family, you
Yeah.
always want better for your kids. If you want something.
Yeah.
So it's like I was educated in a way for something bigger,
Yeah.
and this is how we've been
Yeah.
able to do it that way and scale.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I'd love to kind of go back to those early moments with Whole Foods, right? Like at the time, of course, you didn't have your own brand. Well, I guess you had your own retail brand. But like what kind of products were you supplying to Whole Foods? Was it really like the food service that was kind of the bulk food, right? For the hot bar. Was that correct? Or was there, kind of Whole Foods branded meals you were doing? Or like what kind of food did you supply and how did that relationship kind of evolve over time?
So yeah, it started with the hot bar. The Indian hot bar started in Columbus Circle, and as they opened stores in Manhattan, became like a staple. And then they started opening outside Manhattan, New Jersey, and things like that in the Metro New York area. And the Indian product just became like a staple for them. People knew that Whole Foods was a place to come for their Indian food, and it's always stuck that way. And from one region, it became three regions. We started doing the Mid Atlantic and North Atlantic. Anywhere we could get to with a refrigerated truck, we were doing our own trucking. We were, we at one point we were even took next day orders from them. So it was able they were able to keep the food in rotation, keep a high end quality product, which could sit on a hot bar well. So it worked. And as that expanded, they started replicating that in other parts of the country as well. And now we do every store, so that it's all like every store in the country, are the Indian hot bar program is by us, and it's we have the ability to do it now on out of the facility. But it started from like something different, and now it's just there all the time. They also launched our Cafe Spice brand first. It originally was a joint brand between Cafe Spice and Whole Foods, which they launched just in the New York City stores, probably around the time we had our new plant, that 2008 that I was talking about, when they opened their Tribeca store. That's where we launched the Cafe Spice retail brand originally. Now again, the Cafe Spice brand sits in all of their stores as well as other retailers like Kroger, Albertson stores, all over. So
Yeah, and I guess like, at the time, of course, Whole Foods wasn't owned by Amazon, but obviously Amazon and Whole Foods are known to be not easy customers, right? So like,
Yeah.
how has that been? I
Look,
mean, like
so much
working with them.
compliance, so many
Yeah,
different ingredients, the clean label, and they were the
yeah,
originators of the clean label. And it just became that Cafe Spice became
yes,
only a clean brand, right? Everything that we
yeah,
do in our plant is to their product specifications, so
yeah,
that we stick to the same oils, we stick to the same whatever they want.
yeah,
And you mentioned Amazon, the big Amazon pivot for us. I'm not sure what year Amazon bought Whole Foods, like if offhand, but COVID was like where hot bars went to zero, right? Nobody was going into a Whole Food store anymore. And that's when Cafe
yeah,
Spice got online at Amazon, when we had to make it happen really quick. Because, I mean, hot bar at that point was a good 40-50% of our business. And right now it didn't exist overnight. So that's what got us onto home delivery on Amazon. And then there's so many other
right,
online platforms like Hungry Root and things like that who have
yes,
since then also started um home delivery. I mean, there's so many direct to consumers, but COVID is really what it propelled that for everybody.
yes,
And
yes,
having the ability to make those meals was
yeah,
great during the pandemic for us, for a
yeah,
pivot.
yeah. One of the things I'd love to kind of really hear about and talk through is like, I look at some of these great founders in history and they've been working on their business for 20, 30 years, right? Like they really kind of were able to kind of, they have this dedication to it and they're able to kind of really grow the business over a couple of decades. So like, I guess I have a couple of questions there. Like one is like, what kept you going? I mean, it's like hard to continue doing something for 20, 30 years. I mean, in Silicon Valley, for example, it's very common for people to jump ship after 3, 4 years. What kept you going for 30 years almost basically on this business?
I mean, there's definitely, obviously, like, there's there have been the tough times, right? I mean, there were restaurants, they were, like I was mentioning, we mentioned the COVID pandemic. There were times when we were in construction during the COVID pandemic, and there's times when we were ready to like be like, I'm done with this. Like, what is it, and like, what am I doing? But you know, it is a family business. It is, what keeps me going is I am fulfilling my father's dream, right? That's a big thing for me. That he is 77 and I'm 47, and I have the ability, he has the vision. I've caught that from, maybe built it bigger than we ever thought it would be, even to that vision, right? But in the in where we are today, it's really, for me, what keeps me going is like, is the family pride, right? It's
Yeah,
There were times when I was like, oh my god, what am I doing?
yeah,
And I would say, Dad, why are we opening this plant? We don't even have the business. And he would say, trust me, you're going to come to me in a few years and say you need a bigger plant.
right.
And of course it happened. And we were bootstrapped very early. Like, it was all all our own family
Yeah,
funds. It's a little bit of debt, personal guarantees. So what keeps you going is like, this is, there's a certain level of, like I mentioned earlier, is that immigrant pride. I'm the next
yes,
generation. I need to make sure it is successful.
yes, yes. And actually, the capital question is a really good one. So I'd love to kind of hear about the capital journey, especially as like, you know, some founders might be listening to this. Like, how do you build this company? How do you bootstrap it? Is it, yeah, I mean, kind of love to hear that story.
Well, we're lucky. We had a successful restaurant business. It was able to fund the plant growth, and family investments, like I said, like loans from personal family, like from my father, if you say, right. And then, as we got to this right size, then you start the next step is debt, bank debt, right? Equipment debt, those things like that. That's that's the first step of you need to come through that. And again, like I said, an immigrant story is, I don't borrow from anybody. I get my own money. But in order to get to like a stage, like, interest rates are low compared to where they are in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
It's time to build a business this way. And then it got to a stage where I wanted to bring in a strategic investor. So 5 years ago, I met Andy Gellert of the Gellert Global Group, and had a talk with him for some advice on what I should do. Is private equity the right place? I don't know if I'm right there right now, if it's the right time for me. I still want to control my business, those type of things. And so at that point, and then he ended up being my investor after I went to him for advice, and took a strategic partner, so that to get us to the next level as a family business. As a family business,
Yes.
you're just everything is at the end of the day, your entire lifeline is in that business. And
Yeah.
now I brought somebody else so that, I have a bounce board. I have
Yeah.
if I ever have a problem, I call the Gellert family, and they're like, they've seen it 20 times before. They're a $2 billion food business, and
Yeah.
they've seen it enough. So I felt that was and my father also feels that's the biggest move I made for the company, was to bring
Yeah.
in a strong strategic, not just for the financial side of things, but more for someone to help me execute my vision and bounce
Right.
things with.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess, were there other like really key moments in the business? Like, it seems like bringing on the strategic investor. You've kind of talked about obviously COVID, the Amazon kind of going online, the construction, obviously pivoting from restaurants to more production style. Like, what are the other kind of key moments, like the inflection points or crucible moments in the business?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that it took a while to just discuss with my board, my team, is like, how much do we focus on the Cafe Spice brand, and what are we willing to do for others? Because co-packing, private label, all also took a big growth stage over the last few years. Supermarkets were realizing that they are all of a sudden promoting brands that end up having higher valuations than them, so because of the availability in the store. And private label was boosted so much, so we've always been a culinary and quality first business. And we wanted to flex our culinary skills and flex our capabilities, and take it even to private label. So there's a lot of stuff you may not realize is a Cafe Spice product, which you see under other brands on the shelf, and the freezer, online, and things like that. So, and then using flexing that culinary, not just beyond Indian, then Thai, Latin. Now we just launched
Yeah.
Cantina Latina, as I mentioned. We
Yeah.
want to replicate the Cafe Spice success with
Yeah.
Latin, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing now. And then
Yeah.
if we
Right.
show that, then what makes it that Asian's not next, or
Yes.
even Comfort American, those type of things work as
Yes.
well. So just kind of building that playbook.
Yes. Yes.
And so we had to have a serious discussion on, are we willing to use our recipes and use our culinary know-how for other brands? Are
Right.
we just building a valuation in Cafe Spice brand, or are we building a profitable business? And obviously everybody went to, let's build a profitable business. That's the most important part for us.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And I guess like another question I have is like, you've always been based in New York. Uh, in some ways, that's kind of how you started, right? That was kind of the founding of the
Mhm.
company, right? Um, I mean, do you think that accelerated you somehow, like because you're right in the center of like the most important city in America, or
Sure.
was it ever a hindrance? Speaking about logistics, supply chain, shipping to, let's say, the West Coast, like how do you kind of think about that from a logistics, supply chain, and also just operations perspective?
Yeah, it's not the right place from logistics and supply chain for sure. But yeah, we are in the most popular market for us, right? That's where we
Right.
started and things like that. Ethnic food, Indian food, is more accepted, or at least 15 years ago, 20 years ago when we started, more accepted in on the coasts, in the like, whether it be California, whether it be New York, or and then work your way in. Like the palate is more acceptable to our cuisine. At least it was then. Now everybody's eating Indian food. Indian food's all over the place. But at that time, distributors didn't even want to stock our food.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know if this is going to sell.
Yeah.
We really had to, and that's where there was a lot of problems in distribution, is
Yeah.
like, we took warehouses and like we're
Yeah.
stocking them with product, thinking that like we had to put these heavy investments in. Like, we in Las Vegas, we took a warehouse, and we're trying to expand in the casinos there, and things like that. It was like we had to
Yeah.
make those bold decisions and investments to make our product, just to give accessibility to our products, because half the time if you can't get it, nobody's going to buy it, like at
Yeah.
the supply chain, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's why most of our products are frozen, because
Yeah.
frozen supply chain is built much stronger than the refrigerated supply chain. So our products will ship across the country frozen.
Right.
And although we'll sell in the deli, it will be thawed out and sold in the deli, as and dated at that point. Where originally, we just in New York, we would supply everything with a 30-day shelf life fresh.
Yeah.
But supply chain led us to going that frozen and thaw route.
Yeah. 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 It makes a lot of sense. And I guess another thing I'm curious about is, As you think about like obviously like you had the vision and your dad had the vision and then you were kind of executing against it, but really you had to also hire a lot of great people. I mean, obviously we work very closely with your team and they're incredible. Like, I'm curious around how you thought about team building and really kind of like the individuals executing and also of course the leaders. I mean, how do you kind of think about like building that team and what kind of people and what kind of traits did you look for in that?
So I have a fantastic team. I can't even. I've built it. We've built it over time. We've built from within. My COO has been with me 19 years. My VP of manufacturing has been with me 18 years. You know Virgilio and Giovanni, they're amazing, and I think Virgilio's done
Yeah,
some podcasts
incredible stuff.
with you before, right? And the, they're amazing. And but as restaurateurs, going back to the origin story 20 years ago when we built the New Windsor plant 19 years ago, is we are restaurateurs. We cook a product at that time that is going to be consumed within a couple hours. Now we're moving to a facility. Now we're moving to a business where somebody might eat it 2 weeks later, they may eat it 2 months later, they may eat it a year later. And we want to maintain the quality and the taste. So when we built the team, we built it with food safety in mind first. Everything was based on experts in that field. Um, and that's where Virgilio came from, airline catering. Giovanni also came from airline catering. Like that, that's where they're the most strict when it comes to food safety. And that's why we decided, we know food, we know marketing, but we
Yeah,
want experts when it comes to food science, and that's how we built the team. The other part is like I said, culinary. Culinary is so important for us. We want tasty recipes. So my sales team, my R&D team they're all chefs. We have people from CIA on our team. Just they all understand what quality is, and we won't sell
yeah,
anything that we won't eat ourselves. That's the most important part to us. And even if it be a private label client or something who wants to sacrifice quality, we don't want our name on those items. So that's why
yeah,
the culinary and food safety are most important parts of building a business of cars.
yeah. And as you think about like so that makes sense in the kind of people you're looking for. But in terms of like just like you're sitting in an interview, like what are some green flags you're like, wow, this person is just like exceptional. I need to get this person like versus kind of red flag, orange flag. Like how do you think about like what separates a candidate from another candidate for you?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. As an entrepreneur, we've made a lot of wrong decisions too, right? I mean, it's in hiring too. Sometimes you think somebody is the right person, but they're not, and you learn over time. So now it's easier, and when we go through the interview process of spotting the right and wrong person, it's always great to surround you with people who tell you what you want to hear. But what I enjoy more is somebody who I can learn from when I hire them. That not just telling me what I want to hear, not just say yes. So it's like somebody who has can complement the growth of my vision, not something just I can do. Like, or if it's me and Virgilio, not something that both of us can do. Somebody who can
Right.
complement us, but also we can learn from. And I think that's very important in our interview process is somebody who brings a skill that we may not have ourselves.
Right. And as you think about like now leadership, like what do you think separates? My kind of overall philosophy on this is like everyone is a terrible leader and manager until maybe they're not. Like, and that takes a lot of time, obviously. So you've been doing this a lot, right? You've had a lot of time to really perfect the craft. Like, what have you learned in terms of leadership, in terms of being a great leader and a great manager, and what separates a great one from a good one?
And I always believed that promote from within, and I've learned the hard way that sometimes it's not. Like sometimes somebody doesn't want to grow, and you can't force them to. And that was really hard for me to learn as a leader, because I was always thought, hey, the person's just psychology should be I want to grow. But what was unfortunate to see for me is that there's some people who are like, I'm fine here, and I don't want to grow, and you push them, and it's not, you may think they're driven by money or they're driven by raises, but they're not, they sometimes want the quality of life, or they don't have the capability. You can't make somebody what they aren't. And although I've found some great people who I have promoted from within, we realized that sometimes you just need to bring outside talent in order to help grow when you get once you get to a certain stage.
Yeah. I'm also curious in like how your role has changed. Like, I think like as a founder, like it feels like your role is shifting every like 3 6 months, maybe every year, depending on the period.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I'm sure at some point, I mean, you were kind of on the front lines, making the food yourself, right?
yeah.
Like bringing it to that Whole Foods yourself, right?
Oh,
Like,
sure. Me and my wife would do like in the early days, like the logos and everything were designed by my wife. We were doing the demos. We would be standing in the Whole Food store having people taste the product. We were carrying boxes during trade shows, and that's my parents even know more of that. They were in the restaurants cooking, like all that kind of stuff, and um as we were able to grow and build our team, I had some strong team members as okay, what do you want your role to be, right? As I'm growing the business, I am the visionary. I am the key customer still I work with, right? I mean, I'm at every meeting when it comes on the sales, and that's my strength. And now I've been able to create the team where operations is run, tech is run by my COO, and finance is overseen by him, and all that stuff. And I have one direct report. If you think, I mean, obviously, it's like, and for me, that's always been what I really want because that is where I can steer the ship of the company the way I need it to, and where I want to go with it. Um, we have certain goals and mandates that we set up as our we have a family board. So as our family board, we say, okay, this is our key for this year, this is our key, these are our numbers we want to hit, and then I work with the team that to execute on that. And yeah, so my role is has now, rather than into day to day, I can be the face of our company, face of our brand, doing things like this with you. I have the time to do that, and
right,
that's
right,
and that's where my true passion lies. And
yeah,
we've built a great business, and I'm excited that it is where it is. And
yeah,
what is the next brand? What is that? I can focus on what is the next cuisine? What is the next
right,
brand? I can think 2 to 3 years out. Where when you're in the weeds, you can't think
right.
past. What am I doing
Tomorrow,
today? Oh, how do I
yeah,
make it to next week?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
very happy and proud of my team that they've got me where I am now.
yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And I'm also curious, like, and I think this is like um, a question I have, which I think a lot of people don't think about, but I think it's an important one. And as you think about like, the longevity of how you've been able to do this, but like, how do you think about like your own routine? Like how, like in terms of like the habits you have in terms of like some founders like Elon Musk is espousing like work 16 hours a day, others like, the Patagonia founder has an opposite kind of, enjoy some other things in life. How did you build that for yourself? Like a routine managing family life with work? Like
So
how do you do that?
yeah, so again, like growing up in a family business, it's work all the time, right? You're always thinking about it. I don't feel I'm ever off, but I feel that the new world and technology where it is now compared to what our parents had and things like that gives us the ability to do it our own way. Um so yes, I do feel my routine is I live and die by my calendar now, right? It's like I need to look at it all the time, make sure where I have my calls and all that kind. And it's become a strong part of it. I also am a member of YPO, Young Presidents Organization, which has taught me to that's where I got to limit your direct reports, those type of things, and it gives me a bounce board of people. My forum gives me a bounce board of people to talk to who are building businesses similar to mine, or not even similar to mine, but at the similar stage as mine. So everybody has the same problems and opportunities when it comes to, and I have a bounce board to so I've dedicated a good amount of time to YPO as well to further educate myself to help grow the business. Things are always changing. Um and I think education is important. We should always be
Yeah,
learning about what's out there, whether it be technology, whether it be technology is a big part, right? Because that's always evolving.
yeah,
And going to conferences, trade shows, and to learn
yeah,
more has always been. I feel that if I can dedicate more time to that as part of my routine, that's great. I'll learn more.
yeah,
There's things happening in other countries. There's things happening. It's great.
yeah. So, I mean, as we're talking about technology, I'd love to kind of pivot towards tech a little bit and
Mhm.
scaling the business. Like, obviously, technology has affected every industry. So, of course, you guys opened a brand new facility in 2023 in Beacon, and the vision was really a fully automated plant, which obviously, ready to eat and ready to heat, that's very rare. I mean, it's usually lots of people, right? So, I mean, obviously, that's a very visionary thing you tried to do. Like, what first of all inspired you to do that, but also kind of how has your approach to technology and automation more generally kind of evolved over the years? Because of course, for a while, it was like there's basically nothing, right? So like, I'm curious how that's changed for you.
Yeah, we went from fully manual, filling trays, cooking products, like filling. Automation was the most important. Larger batches, automation was the biggest mandate for the facility that we opened in 2023 that you mentioned in Beacon. It took us, as I mentioned, the COVID pandemic. We had a couple of delays, but the goal was it's a three-phase project, which with automation key. Why automation, as is the question you asked, is you just want to create it so that it's scalable, right? At the end of the day, we don't want to be so reliant on labor. Now we don't now by that and that way you're not minimizing labor. I'm not looking to replace people, but I'm looking at people doing the jobs they want to do, right? And then there's by bringing in robotics and automation, we've been able to increase our capacity without increasing our costs, which is necessary, right? Margin is key, cash flow is key. Those things became much more achievable due to automation. Everything becomes more predictable um when you are working with technology. Everything, it just becomes easier to predict. Whether I have a busy week or I have a slow week, I'm able to manage my costs associated. And obviously without cash flow there's no business. So tech has been important. It's always changing, right? I mean, that's the world we live in today. um and that's why training and learning is so important for not only me but for my key team members. I'm always looking at where we can help everybody learn more and keep up.
Yeah.
AI is moving every day. There's a new model. There's new stuff going on, and that's why also, I mean, I don't mean to go just to this, but that's why the chef model works so well for us, because we work with you guys, and the tech as it's changing. You guys are, are the way that the RAS model, the robots as a service, works is that you guys are keeping up with technology and
Yeah.
updating us as we went from first 8 robots to 16 robots to now.
Yeah.
I think we were working on the next set already.
Yeah.
So the way that and seeing just the technology, and as just one company of you guys is seeing how it grows and what you're learning from working with manufacturers are filling these needs. I think when I met you the first time, you mentioned to me that you realized that food manufacturing is this archaic industry that still works in certain ways,
Yeah.
and how can you disrupt that? Like,
Yeah.
who really wants their life's job to be filling trays with rice,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they just do it all day. Nobody wants that, right? And we can use that same brain power and educating people to understand quality control, understanding food science, which is more important, and educate them and teach them in that way.
Yeah.
That's why automation is key. It's for scalability, cash flow, and growth.
Yeah. And has there been anything especially surprising to you as you've adopted these technologies? Not just the automation, but maybe even like softwares and ERP systems and more supply on the back end supply chain side, like just generally as you've adopted AI and software and hardware and technology more generally, anything surprising or key learnings you've had that you could kind of advise
Every
other
day,
founders?
Rajat, every day is amazing when I see what my team is doing with AI, and we're sitting in our meetings and see like what sort of, and it's encouraged me to invest in things I never wanted to invest in before. I didn't understand why certain data costs so much money and things like that. But now what you see, what what my team can do with this data by using AI and how it can help us in our business. And I said the biggest thing is predictability. I think it's just that's what will that's what hurts, right? In entrepreneurship is when things happen, right? I mean, obviously they happen many times, but when you have an aggressive person like me who's willing to take on any project at the helm of it, predictability is the most important thing from to keep a CEO like me, who's an aggressive CEO, founder like me, to make those mistakes. Predictability is so important. Data is so important, and it's not something we had 20 years ago. And now with a great team and great data and technology at our fingertips, you
Yeah,
say, right? It makes it surprises. Like I said, it surprises me every day. My own thinking surprises me.
yeah. I'm also curious in terms of like sometimes it makes sense to use automation and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like, Cafe Spice has a great brand, and I think part of that brand is like it does feel very like almost home cooked and very like high quality food, right? So how do you kind of manage automating parts of the operation while keeping other parts of the operation very human, like cooking, for example? How have you thought
Cooking,
about that? I
the
guess.
spice room, I'm going to use that as an example. It's our spice room. Our spice room still has somebody weighing out all the spices for all the recipes for by hand, and it's extremely important. Grinding the spices, getting the quality, like all of that is extremely important in maintaining the quality of our product. So there's still people there, and probably the most important role because that's the flavor of the food. And so we won't automate that, right? But like you said, that love, those parts of the recipe have to be there, and we will automate the tasks that can be automated without sacrificing any quality.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I guess pivoting away a little bit from technology, I'd love to kind of talk and hear a little bit more about, as a founder and entrepreneur, it almost feels like nobody takes you seriously until they do, right? There's this kind of like crossing the chasm moment almost, right? Where like, these brands, like for you, Whole Foods took a bet on you pretty early on, and I'm sure that was a great logo that helped you with others. But how was that journey for you? Like, kind of, you went from like, this outsider selling Indian food in America, and that was kind of a novel idea, let's say, to now it's obviously very common. Um, how do you kind of convince the skeptics and convince Albertsons and convince all these different people to take a bet on you, basically? And like
I
I'm
go
sure it was
back,
kind of some kind of flywheel, right? But like, what were the key
yeah.
moments of that flywheel that accelerated you?
No, I go back to the quality, right? I mean, we had the pedigree when it came, and we had the resume, if you say, with the best Indian restaurant in the '80s, right? And we have that pedigree in what we're trying to create. I go back to that a lot, and the culinary and the quality. So, how do you educate customers to answer that question when they don't even know what Indian food is we make them taste it. We would invest in demos. We would invest in getting people to taste the product and how much they love it. Early days, I was mentioning how my wife and I would do the demos. It would be more exciting if a kid would taste your
Mm,
product and they love it, and then they'd bring the parent over who's probably never even tried Indian food, and then they'd say, "Mom, you have to try this," and then they'd start. So education with Indian food and ethnic food has always been very important, still is today. We work very closely with college and university students to try to get our products onto campuses, because
yeah,
those folks are going to be your customers when they get a job, and they're going to be your customers for life if you can, and they're also more open to try new things. So it was always an important part of my strategy was the college and university market. I mentioned my business plan was to open a cafe spice in every college town. I didn't
right,
get to that with the restaurants, but at least I can sell my grab and go meals in every college campus as
yeah,
much as I can.
yeah. And so that makes a lot of sense. Like this focus on just like the product being excellent, right? And that kind of
Mhm.
almost in some regard sells itself.
It makes your job much easier.
It makes your
Yes.
job much easier. Well, sometimes people talk about, at least in Silicon Valley, how like, there's these founders who just focus on product, like they just only focus on product, but then there's no distribution, and then nobody wants it, and then they
Oh
die.
yeah, that
So,
was the early
so
challenge. That was the early challenge for us, and um and a lot of mistakes over the years of trying to direct distribute, trying to build Cafe Spice units on campuses, and realizing that chicken tikka masala, samosas, and rice will still be your number one sellers, but you need the other items for an entire
yeah,
concept. And then a
yeah,
distributor is like, how much, how many maybe aloo gobi, potatoes and cauliflower, how much aloo gobi are you going to sell? But we still need a slot for it.
right,
So like those type of mistakes and trying to figure out that distribution headache has been a big challenge and always evolving too. Like and
right,
it's always evolving. It still happens today. So it's
yeah. And I guess like retailers were obviously a big part of your scale up, right? Like,
Mhm.
is that a fair statement, or like what contributed really to the success of like that distribution model? Like, what contributed to you being able to have Cafe Spice food all over the country now?
Making that pivot towards willing to go frozen for sure because the
Yep,
supply chain is much stronger.
yep,
Um, and yeah, retail has been our strong suit. Um, and as I mentioned, Whole Foods, Kroger. I mean,
yep,
they're the largest retailers in the country. And when they
yep,
get behind your products, then distributors listen.
yes,
So
yes,
it's
yes, yes. There's an
so
instant
and
trust.
then and the same distributor who's distributing to them can then try to bring it to the other. So you really need those anchors
Yep.
and we are lucky that we built it. And then I did it honestly, Rajat. I started as distributing my own food,
Mm,
and it was at a cost, but it was also a level of customer service, right? I mean,
mm,
if I was able to get the product to you the next day, and if you ordered it, and then slowly change that, but that was a big part of why we're successful because we
yep.
wanted to make it easy. And we had to for our products to be successful. And it was at a cost. Like I said, it was not efficient, but it got us, it got our brand known. It got us out there.
Yeah.
It had people really like if there was a store where we wanted stuff and I'd bring it in my car, right? In the early days. And to that part of customer service is what really started the business. And we still kind of, even though we've gotten bigger and we've put all the controls in there to make everything more efficient, that personal touch is still there wherever it can be for us in different
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And were there certain decisions that mattered a lot more than others? I mean, we talked about a couple of them, right? Like technology, and we talked about like, hiring great leadership team. The pivot towards Frozen. Or like we've talked about some of these moments, but like, were there a few other key decisions that you made that like really had a big impact and like in a really good way or a really bad way that mattered a lot?
Yeah, no, I in a bad way, right? I could tell you, like, as an entrepreneur, there's if you don't make a few mistakes, then it's nobody has the perfect story, right? And so there was a time. I mean, we're going through a very large situation in the U.S. today of salad recalls and things like that. There was something at Whole Foods. I told them, hey, I can make your salads, and I decided I want to be in the salad business, and if I can sell X amount of Indian food, I can sell 5X of salads. I can get in the salad business. But like this was, we did it. We made great salads. We made great, we did it. But then it's a different supply chain. It's not the same thing. You need to think like, is it only, I just because I can make one thing doesn't mean I can make everything. And I was at that stage at one point where it's like, I need to fill up these plants. I need to maximize. I can make this. I can make this. And there's so many items that we made over the years. So what is one big thing that we learned in the early days and still learn today is SKU rationalization. It's yes, 80% of the business is certain items and you need to have the other 20%, but choosing those other 20% that complement your 80 is very important to be the ones that make money and that you don't lose money on those 20% of items.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Um, I'm also curious as you, and I'm double clicking on this a little bit, but I think it's really interesting. Like, going from like Whole Foods, which of course took a bet on you, to like your next customer. Like, the customer number two, and then customer number three, and then maybe like I don't know where Kroger was on along that journey, but like I'd love to talk more about those sales conversations. Like, was it like, yeah, Samir, like you've done it at Whole Foods, like great, we're convinced, or like
That was the
how
early
was
days. I
it?
mean, everybody wanted to be a Whole Foods copycat early in the early
I
days.
see.
You know, it was
Interesting. Yeah.
definitely. And then the food safety standards, I'm sorry, the food quality standards of the right oils, the right meats, all that kind of stuff. Everybody, there is still, there are, it is the crown jewel in certain places, and
Yes.
people want. And being such a trusted partner of theirs, there's Wegmans, there's others who are we also work very closely with their chefs and their teams, and that's important. And college and university, like I mentioned, we've given it a couple of goes, and we found it now. We found the traction is the culinary angle, and that's what we need to focus on there. Maybe they don't need a finished chicken tikka masala, but they want a tikka masala sauce that they can make 5 6 different items with. And so it's customer one, two. I mean, obviously there was customers. Cafe Spice before was our only customer at one point, was when we were supplying our own restaurants, and that's created the stickiness. And then Whole Foods, then whether it be Wegmans, whether it be Hungry Root, whether it be Kroger, like all of them have just they just love the brand. They love the flavors, and now they love the data. And that's the best selling part now, is that we can
Mm,
show success. We show
yeah.
success in certain areas, show success in certain, and we're able to illustrate that.
Yeah. So as you advise different kind of food and beverage operators and manufacturers and even restaurant owners, like is there something you would advise, like let's say a new founder on what you would do differently or what to do, or lessons you've learned over the last set of years?
Yeah, don't, like, for me, the biggest learning experience from the early years is, don't try to be a jack of all trades,
Mm,
master of none. Have focus. Don't, you know, founders, startups, all that stuff, they always, cash flow is important, right? The P&L is as important as the growth. And I learned it the hard way, right? And always innovate. Never just sit with your products. Always be ready to have the pipeline ready for the next 18 to 24 months as well.
yeah.
Those would be like my three most important things.
And it seems like for you the next big thing that you're spending your time on is like how do we kind of go beyond Indian meals into different ethnicities? Is that a fair statement, or like what's kind of the next big thing for Cafe Spicy you're spending time now on?
So yeah, that's one, right? Is try to replicate, but then I also can't let Cafe Spice get boring, right? We're looking at, where can Cafe Spice live in other parts of the store? What can we do with our current meals to revive them? We're in a country where people are now much more open to bold, spicy flavors, where maybe 20 years ago we had to, if you say, bring back some of the flavors, but but we need to have items that hit that palate also. So keeping our own brand interesting is just as important as expanding outside that. There are other brands out there it's fun to be the leader, but there's always other brands
Yeah.
coming behind you.
Yeah.
And so that's important. And and the plant, our own plant, is very important to us. I mentioned it earlier. It was a phased approach. We are halfway through phase two probably,
Oh
and
wow.
we've built the infrastructure that we can go far beyond where we are today. And we have strong equipment partners like yourselves and others, and we're excited for that growth as well.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, makes a lot of sense. um we talked a little bit more about learning earlier around like shows, working with partners like Chef. But how more broadly, like, are there particular books that have been really impactful for you, or more generally, how do you kind of learn for yourself, and also how do you espouse that with your team?
Yeah, I like I said, YPO has been so great for me. Um, within my forum, we share books all the time. There's an amazing book called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, and it shows you how hospitality, which is where how it was brought up, so that's what makes it interesting. And I actually went to high school with Will, but it shows you how hospitality can be used in every business. And that is what I feel is going to be so important in this new world of automation and AI, is that that personal touch is still going to be required, and it's going to be very
Yeah.
important as we move into this phase. And so I find that one a great one, and
Yeah.
we've read it as a forum, and we've analyzed it, and and it's a really nice approach to
Yeah.
how you can grow your business. That personal touch is very important, whether it be within your team internally, whether it be in your recruiting process, and of course in sales and marketing.
Yeah. 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 Makes a lot of sense. And I guess just to close out here, like, what makes you most excited about Cafe Spice as you kind of peer into the future?
Oh, I'm so excited about Cafe Spice. Like I said, expanding Indian, what's happening with Indian food today. There's brands coming from all over the place that are making an example on all different parts of the store, and then replicating that to other cuisines. I'm really excited about Cantina Latina. I'm excited about bringing out Thai flavors soon. Thai food is very, there's it's booming. I'm very excited that we do it in food service. I'm excited to bring it to retail as well. Lots happening with Cafe Spice, and like I said, the excitement of our facility
Yeah.
is that place is humming. We're excited for to just bring more culinary strong products through those supply chains.
And more generally, as you kind of think about the food manufacturing ecosystem, like how do you see the industry evolving over the next 10, 20 years? What
I
anything
think
you're
the food
excited
safe
about? Yeah.
I think food safety is, it's like I mentioned, that's what we focus on building our team and building our plant. I think that's only going to get more stringent. People are all looking at labels, they're seeing what's going into their food, they're worried about certain, like we're dealing with right now, parasites. You need to have your food from a trusted place, and being a state-of-the-art facility with the right food safety in place is going to be the key to our growth and success.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And anything in particular that you are concerned about, things that you'd advise the industry, like of course food safety, but anything else you'd advise the industry, like not any particular new founder, but like the industry as a whole.
I worry about some of the I think that the early days of private equity and food really, I feel that that capital, I didn't go that route, so it's different, but I do feel that it has dried up a bit. Like that there are a lot of expectations out of brands, and people should not I guess, like not take it too lightly that you can not make money for so long. And really, there's so many brands out there right now who have invested so much time and money and that just aren't able to to sustain themselves. And I worry about that, the capital in our industry.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Samir, is there anything else that you want to say that we didn't say, things that you'd
No,
like to
this is
kind of,
great.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time. I super appreciate the
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you so much, Rajat. Thank you for the time, and look forward to speaking to you soon and seeing you soon as well.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks.